Hi guys, I'm Ruth and I am recording this to share some of my ideas with you that might support you guys in supporting your children and young people at this difficult time. So obviously I don't have all of the answers, and when it comes to mental health there are no quick fixes, unfortunately. It's just like physical health, where it's something that you will have to practice and you will have to work on yourselves, and our children will have to work on themselves as well, to see results. So unfortunately there isn't a magic wand, there isn't any magic that will suddenly make us happy if we are going through difficult times, but there are a lot of support strategies that we can practice and a lot of things that we as adults can do to make this easier for our children. So the first thing I would recommend is removing any stress triggers. So that is for you guys and your children and young people. So if there is something in particular that is causing a lot of arguments at the moment, or if it's something that you feel like you're having to force or push, I personally would recommend relaxing around some of the things that you might have fought for in the past. It's a picking your battles kind of scenario. So if, for example, schoolwork is causing arguments or anxiety or stress for your children, I personally wouldn't recommend pushing for that. There will be plenty of time in the future for your children to do that work and to catch up on that work, and pick up whichever point they are at that time. But I wouldn't be causing any additional stress for you guys or for your young people at this time. So your stress trigger, everybody will have different stress triggers. So if there is for example, if some of you feel like you should be like doing stuff with your children all the time, or you feel like you need to be spending 24 hours a day with your children, or you're feeling guilty if you're not doing creative things every day, again, just be really, really kind to yourselves, because a stressed parent is like not useful and not as helpful as a more calm and relaxed parent when in a crisis. So if there's something that's making you feel stressed, try to relax about it. Try to be really kind to yourself. There's no reason right now that you should be productive. This point in time is all about feeling as safe as possible, as calm as possible. So all of those outside stress triggers that you might have coped well with in the previous normal situation, you don't need to be carrying that or recreating that at the moment. So try to relax as much as you can about that, and then that will knock onto your child's mental health as well. So I'm going to talk through what I would recommend doing if your child is showing big stressful emotions. So for example, if your child is displaying very angry behaviour or very anxious behaviour, or deep sadness at the moment, what I would recommend doing first of all is allowing them to express these emotions. I know how stressful it can be as a parent, as an adult who wants to support a child. I know how stressful it can be when their emotions are big, because our natural instinct is to want to stop those emotions. We want our children to be happy, and when we see them feeling like this, we feel so strongly for them and so passionately for them that we would just want to stop it. We just want to make them feel better straight away. Unfortunately, we can't do that. They have those feelings are valid, so we just need to let them vent and let them express. And if we try to stop those feelings before they've been expressed, or if we try to deny them in some way or guide them before we've heard our children out, we can teach our children the habit of pushing their feelings down, of not expressing themselves. And we don't want to do that, because we want to bring our children up to feel safe expressing themselves, no matter what those feelings are. So sometimes when your children are expressing big emotions, it can trigger us, and we can feel like a bit of a failure as a parent, because we think, oh, if we'd have done a good job, surely they wouldn't be feeling like this. try to let go of that thought if you can. It is very normal for children to feel anxious and sad and angry, especially in the circumstances that we're in at the moment. So first part of this process is to just allow your child to express themselves. If they are hurting you or themselves or property, there are ways that you can work around that. So you can teach them different ways of expressing themselves, of expressing their angry feelings without doing that. And that can include punching a pillow. It can include the tapping, which I've taught on some of my videos before. And if your children work with me, they will know that, and they will know how to do that. It can also involve an anger plan. I'm going to do a recording on anger and anger plans tomorrow for the children. So if you can go through that with your children and basically devise a plan of what you are going to do when your child feels angry, get them to a safe place so that they can vent all of their frustrations and all of their anger away from anybody else so that they're not hurting anybody, and plan all of that while they're feeling calm, so that when they are feeling angry, you might need to model it to begin with, but they will have learned to take themselves off to a safe place. I'm going to go into much more detail on that tomorrow. If your child is showing extreme sad feelings, just obviously, you know, I'm teaching you how to suck eggs, let them cry, let them have a big cry, cuddles if they like cuddles. It's so important that we let our children cry, and that we acknowledge that it's okay to be sad, and that crying is a perfectly natural and essential response to sad feelings. We don't have to be happy all the time, and we don't want our children feeling guilty because they feel sad. Anxious feelings can be quite triggering for us because we don't want our children to be worried and we don't want them to be anxious. But the same thing, hear them out, listen to all of their worries without any guidance or judgment from you at this point. Try very hard to acknowledge that their worries are valid. So we will try to avoid saying things like, don't be silly, don't be silly, of course that's never going to happen. Just hear them out and let them talk through all of their worries. And we can at this point be showing really good empathy and saying things like, I get it, I know, I can understand why you feel like that, it's normal for you to feel like that. Let them express all of their emotions, and when they've done that, they will eventually calm, because as humans, we just want to be heard, we want to be understood. So when we understand our children and when we've shown empathy and we've listened, they will naturally relax and calm. And it's at this point where you can start to give a little bit of guidance and put some boundaries in if necessary. So you might say to them, I totally understand how you feel, and all those feelings are valid and they're nice and calm now, but you're not going to feel like this forever, and these feelings will pass and you can feel a different way. And I'm going to just basically run through some techniques of how you can encourage a new way of feeling as well. You might also use this point to talk about your anger plan. So when your child is nice and calm, and when they've expressed themselves and they've vented their rage, you can say, look, let's get a plan in place so that when you've got these angry feelings in future, you can go somewhere where you feel safe to express yourself. Make it very clear to your children that it's absolutely normal to feel angry. They're not naughty for feeling like this. And also, I think at this point, we need to be aware and be prepared for a shift in behaviour. Be prepared for your children's behaviour to become a little bit challenging. And I would recommend, I don't know how to say this, you're not going to encourage that, and you're not going to kind of condone it, but understand it. Just say, I get it. I get that, I get that it's so hard for you right now, because it will be for some children. Some children will be really, really struggling. And when we're struggling, it comes out in our behaviour, especially for children who are still learning how to manage. So when they're nice and calm, just talk through how they can start to feel differently and how you are going to support them in feeling differently. And again, just to recap, now's the time to talk through a plan of how they can express their angry feelings in a way that doesn't hurt anybody, including themselves. So when you've done that, there are a lot of things that you can do and that your children can do to be offloading their emotions on a daily basis. So like I've said, there's no quick fix to mental health. There's no magic wand that will suddenly turn somebody who's feeling anxious into somebody who's feeling wonderful. And I think the sooner we accept that, the more relaxed we will feel, because we won't feel under pressure for our children to suddenly change how they feel. But I do think it's also very important that we teach our children that feelings are temporary. So if we can get our children into the habit of offloading their feelings regularly, and same for us, it's advisable for adults to do that as well. If we can get them into the habit of offloading their feelings on a regular basis, they won't bottle up and they won't result in anxiety or extreme sadness or anger, because they are processing them as they happen. So try to avoid labeling your children as anxious or angry, because those labels mentally can be quite hard to shift. If we've been labelled as an angry person or as an anxious person, we can get to the point where we own that label and we start to identify as that, and we don't want that for our children. So try very hard to teach your children that emotions are temporary. There's no such thing as an anxious person. People can experience anxiety, but it's not a permanent state unless we attach to it, and then it can become harder to shift. Okay, so in the videos that I've recorded so far, I have taught your children, if they've watched them, how to process their feelings using their imagination. So imagination and metaphor are great ways to process subconscious feelings, and it can be through play, it can be through drawing, it can be through story. And in the video that I did for your children around this subject, I talked a little bit about books and films and how good they are for basically processing feelings without having to identify them with them too closely. So if your child has a yearning to watch the same film again and again and again, as annoying as that can be, for some reason their subconscious is asking for that story. So I would allow that to happen, and I would sit with your child and maybe talk about it with them and just say, which is your favourite bit and which characters do you identify with the most in this story, and just try and get an understanding of how your child is feeling subconsciously. Okay, so some of your children, so we're coming up to the end of my advice, some of your children might not be ready to delve into their feelings directly, so they might not be ready to talk about them, they might not understand them yet. So when we ask our children, why did you do that, they won't have an answer because they are not self-aware enough, and a lot of us as adults are not self-aware enough to say why we do certain negative behaviours. So our children definitely aren't. So I would avoid questioning directly why your child behaves in a certain way, especially at this challenging time, and just accept that when a child is behaving, their behaviour is challenging, it's because they've got some complex emotions to shift. Imagination techniques are fantastic for supporting that. So playing, and like I've said, drawing, writing, stories, making up stories. If your children have got little role play figures, they're really good for helping them to process any feelings that are deep down. They're the best things to do rather than trying to talk directly to your child about feelings, because they probably won't understand them enough to be able to talk to you about them just yet. and it's okay. It's absolutely fine for them to feel like that. So I think that's the end of everything that I wanted to talk about today. I recommend, if you're on any social media, so if you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, there is Unschool Dad, it's called, that is really good for looking at issues around connecting with our children, connection over punishment, if you like, and also attachment parenting on all of those social media sites are brilliant as well for looking at a nurturing attachment style approach to use with our children. Just a quick reminder, no quick fix. Don't worry if things don't change overnight, because they're not going to. It's absolutely normal, and it's a process rather than a goal that we will reach at some point. It's about working through the process of offloading deep subconscious feelings so that we can feel better. I hope that's been useful for you guys. Take what you like, leave what you don't, and I will catch you later.